Hi, we are live today with my show. You notice we're a different time. We're 11 a.m. here on Mondays, Conversations with Friends. And every Monday we go live to chat with women from around the world, hear stories, and to realize that, you know what, we all are making a difference in our world wherever we are. We all have value wherever we are. And sometimes we find that we might have the most value with those closest to us. And we don't want to forget that. And that's kind of when I want to bring attention to. And today I have a guest, Stephanie, with us. And I'm so excited to jump in. We were talking before the show about some things that I can relate to. I met Stephanie through a mutual friend, James Prescott, who's a podcaster and a really good friend of both of ours. So thank you, James. I think you're going to be watching. Stephanie, before we dive into like the meat of what we're going to chat about.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about you.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm a single mom. I'm disabled. I'm a cancer survivor. I'm an author. I'm a podcaster. I'm learning to find who I am without all these external identifiers that we so often rely on, because I've been through some things in my life that really took a lot of that away. So I'm going through a phase, and I hope it lasts forever, where I really try to push beyond letting what I do or don't do define who I am. So
I love that. I love that. Let me start with a question I like to ask all the guests who come on here. What are you grateful for today?
Oh, what am I grateful for today? I am grateful for so many things. I'm grateful for coffee. Love it. Yes. I'm grateful for technology and the ability it gives us to connect to others, especially I think during this weird time in our history where we're connected but so disconnected. I'm really grateful that we have these devices that can help us stay connected to other human beings in a time when face-to-face contact isn't always advised. So much to be grateful for. I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful I'm alive, because there were times when that was a little questionable whether that was going to continue to be the case. So here I am. I'm grateful.
We talked about before the show something really, really interesting and important. We were talking about trauma.
Yeah.
And not just trauma, but we were talking about life beyond the trauma.
Yeah.
How do we get there, and what does that look like? And you're beginning to tell me your story and why that's so important to you. Will you fill everyone in on that? Because I just kind of listened and felt like I was being fed. Stephanie.
Okay. Yeah. Well, a lot of the people that I know right now are people that I've met through a community that was designed for people coming out of evangelicalism. And I've had a lot of great things that have come from that. I've met some wonderful people. I wrote a book on my own experience being raised in evangelicalism and then coming out of it. My podcast is, it's provided a platform for people to tell their stories. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful I could provide that opportunity for people. And I've learned a lot through that entire process. However, one thing I have noticed, the further I deconstruct, is how easy it is to get stuck in being identified by our trauma. And I think as we were talking about before the show, I think that's true for all sorts of trauma. There comes a point where you have to allow yourself the freedom to heal, the freedom to move forward. In my own life, earlier this year, I just reached a point where I was like, I don't want to forever be identified as a former evangelical. I don't want to be forever identified as the trauma I experienced at the hands of people that I trusted within the church. I made the conscious decision to, stop using certain words and hashtags and so forth that would lump me in with a group of, and I'm trying to find my words carefully because I don't want it to sound like, if you're struggling and if you're still traumatized, that's wrong. It's not at all. We are all at different places. And there are some people who have more layers of trauma to sort through than others do, and that's okay. But I know that for myself, I reached a point where I knew that that was not who I wanted to be anymore. Like, I had grown up evangelical and been traumatized by that. I came out of evangelicalism, and the process of coming out was its own kind of trauma. Now that I'm out of that, and I have been for a while now, I'm ready to move forward and start talking about other things, like what is life like beyond all of that, you know? And that's just my personal journey. I mean, we're all at different places. And I want to make that really clear, because I think it's really easy to victim blame, and I don't want to do that. But I also know that there are people who are stronger than they think they are, and they haven't been able to move beyond the trauma of what they experienced. In the circles that I travel, it's what they experienced at the hands of a, fundamentalist belief system. But again, I think this can be true for all sorts of trauma, that sometimes we're stronger than we know. We are more than our trauma. We're more than the things that happen to us. And sometimes it is a matter of choosing to take that step out of how you've identified yourself up to this point as being a victim of trauma. It's that transition from victim to survivor. And I think that is it's not an easy transition to make, because I know that for myself, sometimes it feels good to hold on to those things. This gives you something. This gives you an identifier. This gives you a way of navigating the world. Sometimes, being perfectly honest, it also provides excuses. Sometimes excuses for behavior that wasn't the healthiest or the most kind or the most beneficial for everyone concerned. So, yeah, the transition is not an easy one to make, but I think it's important to talk about moving forward from victim to survivor, and steps that can be taken to do that. I'm not an expert. None whatsoever, but this has just been my experience, just being brave enough to say, this is not who I want to be anymore.
I love how you said from victim to survivor. And is it possible to also be an overcomer?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, yeah, I think that I'm sorting out my thoughts as I'm sitting here on camera. Sorry. Yeah, I think that it is possible. I don't think that we forever have to be identified by the things that hurt us. And even sometimes, being a survivor of trauma, that can become its own identity in itself, and can provide a lot of, again, a lot of comfort, that we might be stronger, strong enough that we don't need that anymore. And I'm choosing my words carefully, because I don't want to be dismissive of people's experiences. And it's important to identify yourself as a survivor when you're ready. I think that part of moving forward for some people, for me, I know it is just moving beyond the identity entirely. Like, this was part of my life a long time ago. Yes, it helped shape who I am. And I wouldn't be who I am without those things, for better or worse. But now I'm deciding who I'm going to be from this day on. And I don't want to be forever identified by wounds.
Yeah. That's so powerful. Where do you want to go?
Where do I want to go? Oh, there's so much, I want to get to the place where I'm not I'm still, and probably still for a long time, going to be known as somebody who is a former evangelical, and that's fine. That was a big part of my life. But I would love to get to the place where that isn't such a big part of how people identify me. or how I identify myself.
Yeah.
I want to take the things that I've been through and use them to help heal other people. You know, if they find something in my story that resonates with them, I hope it can be something that's positive and can help facilitate some healing. And I think that moving forward into a place of truly owning my identity, truly saying, this is who I am, regardless of how the people who raised me wanted me to be or what they wanted me to be, this is who I am. And getting to a place where I'm free to say that without having to be so concerned with consequences, because you know, my life is not at a place yet where I don't have to worry about consequences, unfortunately. But, you know, really being able to take what I've been through and use it to create something that will help other people find a path to wholeness and healing, making something beautiful out of that trauma. Yeah. And that sounds so, you know, that sounds so cliche and so pie in the sky, but I think it's possible. I think it takes time. I think it takes hard work. It takes a willingness to be vulnerable and to sit with your uncomfortable feelings. And it takes a willingness to go to dark places. And that's another thing that's been on my mind, is being willing to, you know, go to those dark places within yourself, those shadows. I was raised to believe that any emotions other than everything that's happy and good and joyful is bad, and it's not. Yeah. We are human beings, and we have, you know, our whole selves that we have to know how to process and live with, really. And when you're taught that an entire part of who you are is bad because it doesn't feel good. You know, no, it doesn't feel good to be angry or sad or any of those things, but that doesn't mean they're bad things. And being willing to go into those places, I think, is part of the healing process. Because if I think any trauma you've suffered, if you're going to be honest with yourself about how you're responding to it, you're going to be angry. You're going to be sad. And that's okay. That is okay. You don't owe it to anybody to alter how you're feeling about something to make them comfortable with it.
Yeah. Where you touched on the beauty that you can find beyond the story. What does that look like to you? Where can we find beauty? Let's say we're coming out of trauma or we're in the midst of it. Where can we find that beauty in our story?
For me, it has been in knowing that just by sharing that story, I helped other people find language for theirs. And, you know, I said years ago, and I stand by it today, I don't believe everything happens for a reason. I don't believe we're put through traumas to make us better people, because that's horrible, you know. But I do believe that if something I've been through, when I share it, can make someone else's life make more sense to them and can give them the language for what they're going through and the strength to face it, it doesn't mean that's why it happened, but it kind of redeems the experience for me a little bit. And
that word redeem. That word redeem is so powerful, and you're almost redeeming the word redeem in itself. What does that look like to you? What does redemption look like to you in your story?
I think that owning it and making it mine, first of all. You know, it's easy to talk about what happened to us. Much harder to talk about what we're going to do with it and how we're going to use it to, instead of allowing it to shape us, we're going to shape our response to that experience and do our best to make it into something good, you know. And again, I know how that sounds. I know how that comes off, but let's face it, life is hard.
Yeah.
You know, some of us go through really, really hard things. And I think the only way through, for me anyway, is to take those hard things and choose to make them something good. Choose to say, I'm not going to dismiss how I feel about this, and I'm not going to pretend it doesn't hurt, but I'm also not going to say this is the entirety of who I am. I'm not going to say, because it hurt me, I'm going to let it define me. So to me, moving forward and redeeming our experiences and finding that beauty starts with owning our story and saying, this is mine. This is my narrative. I get to decide now what happens from this point forward. Especially, I think, if you've been in a relationship that's been abusive, whether that's been with a significant other or a church or whatever the case may be, you had people and institutions in your life who tried to define you, who tried to tell you who you are. And part of finding redemption in the story is saying, no, I decide who I am. And I am not going to be that anymore. That's been the redeeming factor for me. And then I found that as you do that, other people who have been through similar experiences are watching you, and you might not even know it, but they're watching what you're doing and how you're responding to your trauma. And they're saying, I see a little bit of myself in you, and you're giving me strength I didn't know I had, or you're helping me find strength I didn't know I had to face this thing that I was too afraid to face. And that is a redeeming factor for me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very cliche, but I really do think we're all in this together. And, if we can take the hard things in life and choose to use them to sow seeds of healing and strength and helping people move forward into being, to living the best life they possibly can with the circumstances they have, I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
It really takes the power away from the people or the institutions or whatever the case may be who harmed you. Again, it doesn't make it all go away. That takes work, and it might take years of work before you're at a place where you feel whole and you feel ready to say, that was part of my past. I'm moving forward into the future without it now. But, it like I said, it kind of redeems the experience to be able to turn it into something that we define.
Yeah. Oh, so many people will resonate with this. I resonate with this. Hi, James. James just said hi to us. Hi, James.
Hi, James.
I want to talk about your healing process, because I think that might encourage some people. Healing is so messy, and I don't think either of us want to negate that. But that's the reality. Healing is messy, and that's okay, and that's good. What did healing look like to you? What does it look like to you?
It was messy. It is messy. And that's important to note, though. Healing is not linear. No. Sometimes you're going to cycle back into old ways of thinking and old habits because it's just part of the process. But for me, healing has been sometimes excruciatingly slow. It's almost been like, if I had to sum up the whole process, though, it's been like peeling an onion. You just peel off layer after layer after layer after layer until you get to the heart of it. And that is a process. In some aspects, it's been very quick, but in other aspects, not so much. And I sometimes wonder if there are some aspects of healing that I'm going to be dealing with for the rest of my life. And I suspect I will. And I think that brings another point too, though. Life is messy, and I think that especially coming out of the background that I did, it was very easy at first to think that someday you're going to arrive. Like this is never going to be an issue for you again. And that's just not true. That's just not how life works. So healing for me has been, it's been a process. It's been very helpful for me, though, to talk to people and develop relationships with people who did not have the experiences that I had, who have a completely different perspective of the world than I was ever taught. And the reason that's been so helpful to me is because it helps me to understand, again, that what I experienced wasn't the norm for people. And I guess it's because it helps me to see I don't have to accept those things. I don't have to say this is as good as it gets. You know, having other people speak into my life from a perspective where they were never harmed by the things that hurt me.
Yeah.
It helps me to see that, you know, it takes work, but it is possible to not let this dominate my entire life.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to ask you about something, because I went onto your YouTube channel.
Yes.
And I wanted to know a little bit more about you, and the shows you're doing on your YouTube channel are so, like, they're just peaceful. The way you do them, they're so peaceful and so beautiful. You're literally putting on your makeup and just having a chat with us and kind of bringing us into your thought process. I listened to a couple of them, but the one that I was going to ask you about is celebrating the little things.
Yes. I think that's my favorite one so far.
I love that. Tell us about celebrating the little things. And what you've learned in that.
Yes, that has been a huge thing in my life for a long time, but it's something I don't talk about enough. Okay, so most of my life I've struggled with depression. I've struggled with my weight. I've struggled with, you know, lots of different hang-ups. I think that culturally we are geared to think that unless it's a huge success that you can monetize, that your accomplishments don't mean anything. And the accomplishment has to be like Instagram worthy or something to really count.
Yeah.
And that's not true. We are all at different places. And I think that this pandemic that we're all going through has kind of really put a spotlight on how different some of our places are. Some people are really struggling with feeling isolated and lonely and so forth. And some people are fine. It's, you know, we're all at a different place. For the people who are struggling, it's easy to think, well, I'm not getting up and owning the world every day like so-and-so is with their, you know, YouTube channel. So nothing I do matters. Well, that's not true. If you're getting up, if you're struggling and you're getting out of bed, guess what? That's an accomplishment. Good for you. Yeah. If you're struggling and you got out of bed and you took a shower, awesome. You should be proud of that.
Yeah.
A lot of the big goals that we might have for ourselves have a lot of little tiny goals nested into them that we don't even think about. And we get so focused on that big goal that we miss all the little things that we had to do along the way to make that big thing happen. And we don't celebrate those things enough. Especially, like I said, if it can't make money, it's like, why bother?
Yeah.
And so that video, though, was inspired by, so I'm 45 years old. I have a chronic illness. I'm overweight. I had surgery in June on my ankle. It has been a very difficult summer physically. And after seeing a video for a certain pop song that we won't discuss here, I decided I was going to learn how to do the splits. I was like, I am doing it. Dang it. And so for weeks I would practice stretching and so forth. And then last week I did my normal stretching and I realized I'm doing it. It was like, oh my gosh. I was so excited. And it seems like such a small thing, but it's like, I did it. I did something that I was pretty certain I wouldn't be able to do just because of my age and weight and everything else. But I did it. But the thing is, had I not done those little things along the way I wouldn't have been able to do it. Now, is me being able to do the splits going to change my life? No, it's not. But it was an awesome reminder to me that little accomplishments can add up to bigger things. And we have to celebrate the little things that we do. It's so easy to dismiss the work we do every day. It's so easy to dismiss the significance of those. I have a friend who through this pandemic, she decided to take up painting. And she does beautiful things. And I think that's awesome. I know lots of people who have just taken up a hobby because they're stuck at home. What else are they going to do? And they're creating beautiful things, or they're shooting amazing videos, or they started a podcast and they've got a great podcast. None of them are being paid for what they're doing. Does that matter? No, it doesn't.
You put so much emphasis on, unless you're being paid to do it, you're not accomplishing anything. And it's so false. Exactly what you said. A lot of us are doing little things and big things. And what matters, I think, maybe not most, but what's so important is to remember that like our value is in who we are, but also our influence is with those who are closest to us, not even necessarily with like that big book deal. It's you know, it's our children right here. It's our neighbor right next door. And we forget that. We're valuable right here in this moment. I love. So when I saw your video and you did the splits and you said, I did it, I was like, yes. And celebrating each other too in those little accomplishments. Like as women, can we please celebrate each other and lift each other up? If Stephanie does the splits, I want to tweet out, congratulations. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just powerful, not like, oh, look at Christelle, what she's trying to do. And find a negative, like celebrating each other in those little accomplishments is so powerful, and it empowers others to do more things too. Little things. Stephanie, what's your message for women? What do you want women to know about themselves?
Oh, I want women to know, first of all, that you're phenomenal. And you're phenomenal whether you're a wife and a mother and a happy homemaker. You're phenomenal if you're single and happy to be single. You're phenomenal if you don't have kids and never want to have kids. You're phenomenal if you're a cashier at a grocery store or a CEO of a big company. You're not defined by what you do. You're definitely not defined by what you do for other people. Certainly, I think women really, we're not good at understanding that, because our culture tells us that, what matters most is what we do for others. That's not true. You're amazing just as you are. And I really want you to dig in and celebrate those small things, those small accomplishments that you do every single day of your life, and know that they matter and that you matter. Your presence here and now matters. And there are people in your life that you might not even realize are watching you, but they are. And they're feeling inspired by you, comforted by you, empowered by you. And it's just because you're being you. It's not because you're going out there and making a mark in the world, which you might be. But you also might feel like, I'm not doing that. That's okay. That's okay. You being you is enough. And that's my message today. You are you, and that is enough. You are enough.
I love that. Where can we find you online?
Oh, I have a YouTube channel, which I don't know the link for. But I do post videos on my Twitter account. That's at Stephanie Mix 75. I am also on Facebook, but if you want the unfiltered me, definitely Twitter. And my YouTube videos are, it's encouraging to me to hear that, you find them peaceful, because that's kind of what I wanted to do. I'm tired of, everybody being angry all the time.
Yeah. I think we talked about, you have a podcast. Did you want to?
Oh, oh right, I have a podcast.
You have a podcast. It's really cool. Where can we find your podcast?
You should listen to it. My podcast is pretty much available everywhere. Right now it's called Raised Evangelical. Raised is RAZED. I will be changing the name of that in the future and sharing why I'm changing that in the future. But right now, that's how you can find it. And it's pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thanks for reminding me.
I love that. Well, because I wanted to make sure I kind of knew your story and your background a little bit. So I was looking for where I could find you. So thank you so much. Stephanie, thank you for being here. Thank you for leaving us with that powerful message. I so appreciate you. I'm so happy that James Prescott introduced us. Thank you, James. He's been commenting, and he said he needs to find out the song you talked about earlier.
I'll private message you. It's nuts.
So yeah.
I'm going to blow his mind.
I'm so glad we got to meet. Let's do this again. I want to hang out and chat and maybe do a little dinner party with James too. Zoom style.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun, and it was an honor to be here and a really good time. So thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.